I want to do a quick video about wrestling and say something positive about something I like that they're doing right now in WWE, and that is the Drew McIntyre slow heel turn. I really love this. Obviously, one of the things about wrestling that sometimes gets messed up is when people turn. You know, you have babyface turns and heel turns that sometimes happen almost abruptly with no real story behind it. This kind of started in the Attitude Era where, because of the Monday Night Wars, they were trying to create swerves every week to surprise the audience. Both WWF and WCW were guilty of this. Whereas back, if you go back to the era before the Attitude Era, especially in the territorial era, when you had a character turning, whether it be somebody going heel or going babyface, it was a big deal. And it was also something that would not happen as often as it started to do, during the 90s. Because back in those days, because they had to keep up the illusion that wrestling was real, they wouldn't have guys going back and forth between being good or bad. Because when you had your set good guys and your set bad guys, at that point, the fans kind of know who to follow. And so for a guy who was evil to turn good, if it happened too frequently, it would expose the business. In real life, in the real world, good people do bad things, right? And bad people do good things. And sometimes bad people see the error of their ways and they turn good. But also sometimes people who are good get selfish and greedy and become bad. And that's usually why a turn happens in wrestling. Or they're bitter or whatever the case is. And the Drew McIntyre turn is very subtle, but it's pretty obvious. The whole thing kind of started when the Riddle, I don't know what would have happened if Riddle would have stuck around. I have a weird feeling that if Riddle did not get cut, that Riddle would have probably put over Drew McIntyre as a heel at some point, maybe Survivor Series or Saudi or something like that, maybe even later. But I did say in my video for WrestleMania 39, the video where I talked about the 3 planned matches, that Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre is one of the planned matches, with Drew being a heel. Now, I said this about a month ago, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, almost a month, before they really were turning Drew. But that was the plan, to turn him heel. Now, this idea of him being a heel is being executed really well. The fact that Jey Uso, speaking of turns, is now on Raw and he's a heel, or he was a heel, not anymore, and he put Drew McIntyre through a lot of stuff last year during the Drew McIntyre Roman Reigns feud, building up to Clash of the Castle, and that Jey Uso admitted and has done bad things and has apologized for them. I love the fact that when he first went to Raw, he wasn't trusted. Kevin Owens specifically did not trust him. Sammy did. Cody did, but Kevin Owens did not. But in time, Kevin Owens kind of came around to him. But Drew McIntyre has not. Now, I love the fact that Drew McIntyre is pissed off about it. On Raw, this past episode, he wrestled against The Miz, and he actually cheated to win. He ripped off the turnbuckle padding when the ref wasn't looking and smashed his head into it. And he did the implant DDT finisher that he used to do when he was a heel when he first came into the company. Now, he has done that move as a babyface, but it was definitely a throwback to early Drew McIntyre. Now, I love the fact that after the match, he cut a promo and he said, I'm doing something uncharacteristic, folks, but that's okay because I can apologize for it later. This is so well done because we're literally slowly seeing this guy week after week after week become more and more evil. He's pissed off that people are accepting Jey Uso. He doesn't want to do it. He didn't save Jey Uso or the New Day when they were getting beaten up by the Viking Raiders. That's twice that happened. He cheated to beat The Miz, and he's also very angry that Jey Uso's being accepted and very bitter. You can tell he's very bitter. Now, what I would love for them to do is not just have him be bitter, and because when he first came out on Raw, he cut this very sarcastic promo where he opened it up by saying, "What do you guys want to talk about?" Making fun of Cody. Now, what I would love is part of this turn is the fact that Drew is bitter that the company is so much behind Cody when he was supposed to be christened the next guy after WrestleMania 36. But after the pandemic happened, the lockdown, it ruined everything. Because let's keep it real, y'all. Drew McIntyre's title reign was in front of no fans. And that's really unfortunate that his entire run as champion was not in front of a live crowd. And it's too bad. It really is a bummer because I would have liked to have seen whether or not he would have made it, what numbers he would have done as champion, what the crowd would have reacted to live. These are things that we're never going to know. But I do like the idea, and it wouldn't even be WWE's fault. It's not WWE's fault. They didn't create the pandemic, obviously, so you can't blame them. But I do like the fact that he might actually be upset because he has been trying to recapture that title or become a world champion. Since then, it has failed. He didn't beat Bobby Lashley at Mania 37. He didn't beat Roman at Clash of the Castle. So obviously, Seth would end up being his target at some point, probably after Seth gets done with Shinsuke Nakamura, if they want to go in that direction already, which they might do because Drew could actually beat Seth before WrestleMania. The match is happening at Mania, but if Drew beats Seth, they could do the rematch at WrestleMania where Seth is trying to get his title back, and chasing Drew McIntyre. I like the idea of Seth chasing for that title and having Drew be the heel. Because he's a big, strong, tough guy. He's not a cowardly heel. He's more of a tough guy heel. And those always work too. You could also have Drew and Brock wrestle again if you want to do that. They teased it a couple times since their first match at Mania 36. They can do a lot of things. But I like the idea that if Cody's going to be the next guy, it should have been, Drew could be like, it should have been me. What about me? Like what happened with Owen at the end of WrestleMania 10 when Brett beat Yokozuna on the same night that Owen beat Brett earlier in the show, and Owen was overshadowed by Brett's victory over the champion and win the title. I like that. It's a very similar story here where Drew is internally envious and bitter and jealous that Jey Uso and Cody are getting so much love when he had the spot of being the top guy 3 years ago. He had that spot. It was his. And because of circumstances outside of his control or outside of the control of the company, he never really got a solid babyface reign. So maybe, in front of people. So maybe he is mad about that. I do love that turn. It's something that I've been enjoying lately in Raw. Raw, I think SmackDown has been a much better show. The 3 hours of Raw makes it oftentimes go by really slow. Last week's episode I thought was great. The one from last night, not that great. The third hour had a great main event with Gunther and Ciampa. And there was some good stuff on the show, but it really fell flat. It was missing Sammy and Kevin and a few other guys. But to me, it was not a great show at all. It was just a bore for me. But the Drew McIntyre stuff was my favorite stuff on the show. And he's becoming my favorite character on the show to watch because he's really, again, they're doing it slowly. They're not rushing into it. So those are my thoughts. Later tonight, I'll be back with the Ahsoka finale review. That's going to be interesting. Last episode is tonight. So thank you again. Take care, and I'll see you then.